They handed her the keys, right there in front of the courtyard fountain, smiling like it was a family surprise. Except the car wasn't a gift. I bought it, with freelance gigs, skipped meals, and late-night rides. And that moment, it wasn't a celebration. It was an erasure. Hi, I'm Lauren. And on the day that was supposed to be about my future, I found out just how disposable my efforts really were. But what happened next wasn't loud. It wasn't messy. It was quiet, deliberate, and changed everything. Before we dive into the story, let's connect. Have you ever felt stuck, searching for the depths of manifestation? Drop a 3 in the comments if you're ready to unlock your true potential, or a 4 if you're still finding your way. Let's start this journey together. I still remember the sound. Not the applause, not the tassel swishing or the folding chairs squeaking under nervous graduates. No, the sound that stayed with me came later, a faint jingle, my mother's familiar wrist flick as she tossed a set of car keys into my sister's hands. The ceremony had just ended. Sunlight filtered through rows of campus oaks, warming our gowns. I was still clutching my diploma folder, the one they handed you like a promise. I scanned the crowd for my parents, hoping to see them proud, maybe even a little teary. Instead, I found them near the courtyard fountain, posing Emily for a picture. She was laughing, eyes wide, holding the keys up like they were a trophy. "Are you serious? I get the car?" she squealed. Lissa smiled, perfect as ever in her linen blazer, and said, "We thought you deserved a little freedom before you figure out what's next." Then she looked past Emily, right at me, as if to say, "Don't ruin this moment." I stopped walking. That car wasn't a gift. It was mine. A silver Corolla with a worn steering wheel and a dent in the rear bumper from my first freelance client's mailbox. I'd made every monthly payment myself, graphic design gigs, weekend social media contracts, even a short stint doing delivery runs after dark. That car was built out of my effort, not theirs. Emily turned to me, twirling the keys. "This is the best surprise ever." I swallowed hard. That was my car. Lissa's voice was gentle but firm. "It's still in the family." Dad shifted beside her, avoiding my eyes. "We figured you'd understand. You're home most days anyway, right?" I didn't say anything. I couldn't. The taste of disappointment was thick and metallic in my mouth. Back at the house that night, dinner was roasted chicken and bagged salad. I couldn't remember tasting any of it. Emily chattered between bites, recounting her plans to drive out to Asheville with some friends. We might stop at a cabin, like nature, but cute, you know? Mom refilled her wine glass. "You deserve it, sweetheart. You've had a stressful semester." Stressful? Emily had taken 3 classes that spring. I'd worked full-time and still finished with honors. I'd even been asked to give a short speech at commencement. No one mentioned that at dinner. Afterward, I slipped into my room and scrolled through my phone, not really looking for anything. That's when I saw it. Emily's post. A filtered photo of her in the driveway, keys in hand, captioned, "Best surprise ever. I'm officially free. Thank you, Mom and Dad." I stared at it for a long time, not out of jealousy. Not exactly. It was the way my name wasn't even mentioned, like I'd never existed in that equation at all. The Corolla was a symbol, not of luxury, but of progress. Of the version of myself I'd been building one invoice at a time. And just like that, it was handed away. No questions, no warning. Later that night, I found myself sitting on the edge of my bed, still in my graduation dress. I hadn't bothered to change. My shoes were off, but the pantyhose were still digging into my waist. I looked toward my nightstand. It was bare, quieter than usual. That was when I realized something small but loud was missing. The tiny clink of my car keys landing in the ceramic dish beside my lamp. Every night, that sound had marked a full day. Tonight, there was just stillness. At dinner the next evening, I finally asked, "Why didn't anyone talk to me about the car?" Emily froze mid-bite. Lissa didn't. She dabbed her mouth with a napkin, folded it neatly, and said, "You're responsible." "You'll manage." Emily needed it more. Dad cleared his throat. "We all make sacrifices." The words hung there like damp laundry. I could feel my heart sinking, not out of rage, but recognition. This wasn't new, it was just louder now. I nodded once, pushed my plate back, and stood. No shouting, no drama, just a quiet withdrawal. That night, I lay on my bed, fully clothed again, watching the ceiling. I didn't cry. I didn't text Calder like I wanted to. I didn't do anything except stare at the space where my keys used to live. There are things in life you earn in silence: dignity, peace, and sometimes even grief. That night, I earned all three. I always thought being the strong one meant I'd be seen. Turns out, it just meant I was the first to be overlooked. It started with a missed email, the kind of message that usually makes me sit up straighter. A marketing agency downtown had found my portfolio on LinkedIn and invited me for a virtual interview. Creative generalist, part-time, contract to hire, it read. I'd marked it on my calendar, set 2 alarms, even picked out a decent blouse. The morning of the call, I made coffee and cleared the small folding table near the window. My laptop was charged, hair pulled back, notes prepped. But when I reached for the Wi-Fi, I realized something else was missing. The car. I ran to the window. Sure enough, the driveway was empty. Again. I called Emily. Straight to voicemail. I checked the time. The meeting was in 18 minutes, and the house was dead quiet. Mom had gone out for groceries, Dad was at work, and Emily, she'd taken my car. The car. The one she now treated like her own. I sat there, frozen, then sent a short apology email to the agency. Unexpected conflict, I wrote. Would love to reschedule. But I knew how that read. Unprofessional, unreliable, disposable. Later that afternoon, I confronted Lissa in the kitchen. She was unloading paper towels and baby carrots from a reusable grocery bag, humming like she hadn't just cost me a job lead. Emily took the car, I said. She had an early appointment, Mom replied, not looking up. I had an interview. Well, she said, peeling a label off a water bottle. You're home most days anyway. It's not like you were going across town. I didn't answer. Not then. Instead, I opened the fridge and stared at the shelves. A row of yogurt cups Emily liked. Unopened soy milk I'd bought and no one else touched. Leftover pizza in a takeout box. Emily's, from the night before. She'd used my DoorDash account again. I could tell by the receipt email sitting in my inbox. Later that week, I checked my bank app. There was a charge from a local spa. High-end. The kind with stone fountains and minimalist fonts, a facial and a full-body massage. $228, billed to my credit card. I hadn't been there. The card was one I'd opened during sophomore year. I remembered sitting in my dorm room debating if I could handle a line of credit. I'd promised myself I'd only use it for emergencies. Flat tires, sudden medical bills, groceries if a client didn't pay on time. Never once had I swiped it for luxury. I walked into the living room and handed the statement to Lissa. This spa charge, it's mine, except I never went. She glanced at it, then went back to folding laundry. You weren't using it, she said flatly, and Emily's been under a lot of pressure lately. My mouth opened, then shut. The pile of folded towels between us might as well have been a wall. Pressure? I repeated. She got a massage. I lost an interview. She's doing the best she can, Mom said. I nodded. That was what she always said. Emily was doing her best. I was expected to do mine, and more, with less. That night, I microwaved a frozen pizza and split it between 2 plates. Emily came in late, sunburned and glowing. She'd been recharging, her word for a girls' weekend at a lake house someone's cousin rented. She took the bigger slice without asking and left the dishes in the sink. I cleaned up in silence, then texted Calder. Do you still have that guest chair and working Wi-Fi? He responded in seconds. I've got Wi-Fi, a full fridge, and quiet. Just say when. I didn't answer. Not yet. I wasn't sure what moving out meant. I wasn't even sure I could afford it. 2 days later, I found a printed receipt on the hallway table. The same spa charge, only now it had Emily's name in the client field and my name as the card holder. I stared at it for a long time. Something shifted. Not rage, not even betrayal. just clarity, the kind that doesn't rise like a flame, but settles like weight. That evening, I opened my budgeting app. It was the one I'd used for years, the one I built categories into: food, transportation, career goals. I scrolled past the logs and notes and color-coded tabs. Then I deleted the entire thing. Emily passed my door on her way to the bathroom, pausing just long enough to toss a careless smile over her shoulder. "Thanks for the upgrade," she said, like it was a joke we were both in on. I didn't answer. Not then. But I was starting to learn. Silence isn't always surrender. Sometimes it's the first shape resistance takes. There's a kind of silence that doesn't mean peace. It's the silence that seeps in after disappointment has taken root. The kind you stop noticing because it's always there, like the hum of the refrigerator or the creak of your own spine when you bend for too long. They used to say I was the one who didn't make a fuss, that I adjusted, that I was the easy one. For a while, I believed that meant I was mature, resilient, maybe even good. But now, every time I heard those words, all I could feel was how much they'd cost me. It was late summer, the kind that clung to your skin even after sunset. I worked from the kitchen table most days. Emily had the car. Again. I didn't even ask anymore. The Wi-Fi connection blinked on and off whenever someone streamed upstairs, and the fridge hummed behind me, mostly empty except for things no one wanted. Half a bottle of soy sauce, pickles, limp lettuce. The groceries I bought disappeared first. One Tuesday morning, I opened my credit card account and finally looked. Really looked. There they were. Palm Springs, JetBlue, Hotel Palm Oasis, Sephora, Uber, room service, all lined up in neat rows, dates matching the pictures Emily had posted online. Her feet in the sand, her drink in hand, captions like healing and earn this. The charges weren't small either. A boutique spa, a sushi place I'd never even heard of, and there was my name on everyone. I clicked download, printed the statements, page after page. That evening, the house was quiet. Too quiet. I could hear the rhythmic ticking of the wall clock, the subtle whoosh of the air conditioning kicking in. From my room, I could smell the faint sweetness of chamomile tea drifting down the hall. I padded to the kitchen barefoot. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. Not exactly, but their voices carried anyway. She'll understand, she always does. That was my mother. A beat past, then Dad's voice. Lauren's used to adjusting. And then Emily laughing. She never fights back. I stood in the dark hallway, hand resting against the wall. I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel sadness. I felt outside. Like I'd walked into a scene that didn't include me. Like my role had already been written and filed away under compliant. That night, I started labeling folders on my desktop. Utilities paid. Food I bought. Car insurance months 1 to 11. And a new one, still empty, named Things They Took Without Asking. I added screenshots, texts, bank statements, photo evidence of Emily's spa haul. Every line item was like a breadcrumb, a trail out of the place I'd been stuck in. Calder texted me around 10. Still thinking about what you said. Want help with a plan? I stared at the screen, then typed, might take you up on the offer. His reply came in seconds. Keys under the blue planter, door sticks, push hard, then pull. It was the most solid thing I'd read all week. The next day, I opened the drawer under my bed. I hadn't touched it in months. Inside was an old folder from college, acceptance letters, a few printed syllabi, a faded campus map from freshman orientation. I kept them because I thought those years mattered, because I thought this house would always be a place that cheered for me. I took out a duffel bag and started packing, quietly. A pair of jeans, 2 sweaters, my backup hard drive. I didn't touch the framed photo of our family trip to Myrtle Beach, the one where I was holding the camera because no one asked me to be in the shot. Each drawer I opened felt like a decision. Toothbrush? Yes. That half-used candle Emily once mocked? Number the sweater Mom said made me look too serious? Definitely yes. I moved slowly. I didn't want noise. I didn't want confrontation. I wanted space for my body, my breath, my mind. I even Googled legal aid low-cost North Carolina and left the tab open, just in case. At one point, I found a box of birthday cards under my desk, most of them signed Love, Mom, and Dad. None had more than 4 words inside. I kept one. The one from Calder last year. He'd written a line I didn't understand at the time. Some people build wings by walking away. Now it made sense. Around 2 a.m., I zipped the duffel shut and leaned it against the closet door. My room looked the same, but something in me didn't. I whispered into the dark, "They're not going to like the version of me I'm becoming." And I meant it. I used to think that if something felt wrong, it couldn't possibly be legal. That logic had its limits. They didn't steal my car the way movies show theft. No broken glass, no hot wiring in the dark. Instead, they filed a form, a private bill of sale, dated and signed by someone, not me. I found out on a Tuesday morning. Asheville's air was crisp, the kind of chill that wrapped around your ankles before noon. Calder had left for work early, and I sat cross-legged on the floor of his spare room, phone balanced between my shoulder and cheek, listening to the DMV hold music. It was upbeat, too upbeat for the occasion. When the clerk finally answered, her voice was flat but not unfriendly. "Can I help you with something, ma'am?" "Yes," I said. "I need to verify a vehicle transfer, a Kettozer to Zenegi silver Corolla, last name Monroe." There was a pause as she typed. I could hear the clicking, the faint hum of an overhead light on her end. "Okay," she said. "Looks like the title was under your name, sole owner." "Was?" I asked. "According to our system, it was transferred 3 weeks ago, sold through a private bill of sale." "Did that include my signature?" Another pause. "Not from what I'm seeing. That would be a problem." "Is that legal?" "Technically, no," she said. "Without your authorization, it's considered a fraudulent transfer." I didn't flinch. I thanked her, asked for a copy of the title record, and gave her my email address. When the PDF arrived 10 minutes later, I saved it 3 times: desktop, cloud, external drive. Then I created a new folder, car theft evidence. Click. That sound, the act of saving, was the first satisfying thing I'd heard in weeks. By late afternoon, the mountains outside Calder's apartment turned golden. Sunlight hit the trees in long stripes. I sat at the tiny thrifted desk by the window and scrolled through Emily's Instagram. She was back from Palm Springs now, tan and glowing, posting pictures with captions like, "Earned it," and "Self-care isn't selfish." Each post felt like a fingerprint on the glass. Then came the text from Lissa. "We didn't mean for things to go this far. Let's be reasonable. No greeting, no apology. Just that familiar script. Soften the harm, shift the blame, silence the backlash." I set my phone down without replying. Calder came home just before 6. He carried in a small paper bag with steam curling from the top. "Chicken noodle soup," he said. "I figured it's a soup kind of day." He didn't ask what I'd been doing. He just poured 2 bowls and set them on the counter. As we ate, I told him what the DMV clerk had said. He didn't react, just nodded and said, "You don't have to prove anything to anyone. But if you want to, you've got everything you need." I sipped slowly. The soup wasn't fancy, just canned broth, soft noodles, slivers of carrot. But it tasted like grounding. That night, I opened my word processor and drafted a letter. Not a confrontation, not a confession, just facts. To Lissa and Virgil, the vehicle sold on September 8th, 2021, was registered solely under my name. No authorization was given to transfer ownership. Attached are the DMV title record, credit card statements, and legal definitions of unauthorized asset transfer. This constitutes notice. Lauren, no emotion, no signature flourish, just ink and intention. I printed 2 copies and slipped one into a manila envelope. Then I walked it to the post office, shoes crunching over a scattering of leaves on the sidewalk. Inside, the clerk had kind eyes and tired hands. "Certified mail, please," I said. He weighed it gently. "Return receipt requested?" "Yes." "You'll get a tracking number," he said, and tore off a slip for me. As I stepped outside, a breeze moved through the trees. It was quiet. Not the suffocating kind from my old room, but the spacious kind. The kind that leaves room for your breath to come back. That evening, my phone buzzed. Voicemail. I recognized the number but didn't feel the usual sting. I played it on speaker. "You're tearing this family apart, Lauren, after everything we've done for you. This is not how you were raised." The voice cracked, just slightly. I could hear the performance brushing up against real panic, but I also heard something else. Habit. The kind that makes people believe that love means access, that silence means consent. I hit delete, and just like that, the noise in my head softened. That night, I didn't check Emily's posts. I didn't read back over the letter. I just sat at Calder's kitchen table, tracing the grain of the wood, sipping lukewarm tea, and breathing. The manila envelope was gone. The keys were gone. But for once, I didn't feel erased. I felt recorded. Silence used to be my refuge. Now it's something else entirely. Not passive, not peaceful, silence with teeth. The package came on a Friday morning, tucked between a holiday catalog and an overdue gas bill. Plain brown wrapping, no return address. But I knew the handwriting the moment I saw it. Rounded letters, the kind that curl at the ends like they're trying to soften the blow. Inside was the scarf I'd mailed to Emily for her birthday, still folded, still wrapped in tissue. On top, a torn piece of notebook paper. Didn't want it. Should have spent it on therapy. No signature, no surprise. I stood in the hallway for a full minute before moving. The paper trembled slightly between my fingers, not from emotion, at least not one I recognized. I scanned it into my laptop, filed it under public file, and closed the folder without blinking. They wanted me quiet. They wanted to go on with dinner parties and polite phone calls, posting family photos like nothing had cracked. But silence isn't the same as forgetting, and I wasn't playing that role anymore. That night, I posted a black square on my old Instagram. No hashtags, no context, just white text in the middle. You can call it drama. I call it documentation. I logged out immediately. By the next morning, Emily had responded, a filtered photo of her at some mountain overlook, holding a wine glass, laughing at something off camera. The caption read, "When the weakest leave, the strong suffer." I stared at it for a beat, then I closed the app for good. It wasn't about winning. It wasn't even about being heard. It was about refusing to be rewritten. Calder found me in the living room later that evening, sitting cross-legged on the rug with a mug of tea and a folder of receipts. He didn't ask questions. He rarely did. "You know," he said, easing down onto the couch beside me, "you don't have to keep your story hidden. There are others who'd recognize it, might even need it." I didn't respond right away, just watched the steam rise from my cup. "I'm not looking for pity," I said. "I know," he said. "That's why it might actually help someone." We named it together, The Unseen Daughter. Not a manifesto, not a revenge page, just a quiet space where I spoke into the dark and waited to see who would echo back. The first episode was only 10 minutes long. No intro music, no fanfare, just my voice. "They thought I'd stay," I said. I didn't. I told the story plainly. Not all the details, not yet. Just moments, the keys, the receipt, the voicemail I didn't return. I read the scarf note aloud, my tone steady, let the silence after speak for itself. Then I uploaded it. I didn't promote it. No tags, no announcements. I figured maybe 2 people would listen, one of them being Calder. But by the end of the week, I received an email. Subject, "Thank you." From anonymous message, I thought I was the only one. "Please keep going." I sat with that line for a long time. Please keep going. I recorded a second entry that night, spoke not just to what happened, but to how it felt. Like living in a room where everyone sees through you, but still expects you to carry the furniture. The podcast didn't go viral. That was never the point. But slowly, the inbox grew. Not with likes or follows, but with confessions. One woman wrote about being cut out of a will after 20 years of caretaking. Another shared how her parents used her Social Security checks to fund her brother's rehab, twice. Each message was its own kind of freedom. Around this time, I cleaned up my contacts, deleted every saved number under Mom, Dad, and Emily. Not out of anger, but clarity. I whispered as I hit delete, "This time I don't go back." The weather turned colder. Snow flurries drifted past the kitchen window as I made coffee each morning. I'd taken on a part-time role with a wellness brand, small, remote, steady. I used the money to help with groceries and finally replaced the sneakers I'd worn into the ground. At night, I recorded new episodes. Nothing dramatic, just reflections. One was about gaslighting. Another was about the first time I realized love could look like silence and still feel like violence. One evening, I sat at the table with my laptop open, a cup of peppermint tea steaming beside me. Outside, the wind pushed against the windows, soft but persistent. I hovered over a saved draft, an episode I wasn't sure I'd ever publish. It was about the way betrayal sometimes wears a soft voice, how it smiles when it steals. Instead of posting, I closed the lid. Not every story needs to be told right away. I leaned back in the chair, watching the lights from the neighboring apartment flicker on, and I smiled. Not because everything was fixed, but because I wasn't afraid of beginning again. Closure isn't always a slammed door. Sometimes it's just a gentle one you stop knocking on. I was in Charlotte for a work meeting. Nothing dramatic, just a freelance consult with a client opening a new wellness cafe. The kind of project I used to dream about when I was still working off a folding table, trying to sketch logos between family dinners and borrowed rides. It was Calder who suggested I take the long way back to the highway. He knew what was there. So did I. The street looked smaller than I remembered, the sidewalks a little more cracked, the trees thinner. Maybe it was the season, or maybe I'd just grown past the frame they once held me in. I didn't stop in front of the house. I stopped across the street. It still had the same beige siding, the same rusted mailbox with the crooked flag. From a distance, I could see the curtains in the front window, new ones maybe, but the outline of the hallway was the same. That hallway where I once taped my college acceptance letter to the wall, right by the thermostat. I waited for someone to notice. No one ever did. I stood there for a minute, maybe less. No anger, no longing. Just breath and memory. Then I walked on. Back in Asheville, the light through the kitchen windows was soft. Spring had come early that year, and the basil on the sill was leaning toward the sun. I opened my laptop and uploaded a new blog entry. "You don't have to be remembered to be whole." That was the title. Later that afternoon, I stopped by a cafe near downtown, one of those converted bungalow places with mismatched mugs and too many plants. I ordered chamomile tea and sat by the window, tapping at my inbox while the world moved gently outside. A woman near the cream station glanced over. "You're the unseen daughter, aren't you?" she asked, voice low. I looked up. She was maybe 35, maybe 40. Tired eyes, but kind. I nodded. She smiled. That was all. No questions, no praise, just recognition. And it was enough. That evening, back at home, I printed out a photo. It was from graduation, one I'd cropped carefully. Just me, holding the diploma, eyes forward, no one else in frame. I placed it on my desk next to my tea. Not as proof, not as a monument, just a quiet mark that I had arrived somewhere. I leaned back, listened to the distant hum of Calder's voice in the other room. He was on a call, probably editing something for work. The windows were open, and the wind carried the scent of rosemary and damp earth. I wasn't waiting for a call anymore, or a text, or an apology. Some gifts are never given. Some we take back, and some we grow beyond. I turned off the lights, left the laptop open, and walked into the quiet, not to escape it, but to live inside it. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like something was missing. I felt whole. There was no grand farewell, no last argument, just a quiet walk past the house I once thought I had to win my way back into. Sometimes, the healing comes not from mending what broke, but from letting it stay broken and choosing to grow in a new direction. We don't owe our peace to the people who refuse to offer us theirs, and we don't need a stage to reclaim our voice, just a steady place to speak from. If this story reminded you of a time you had to choose yourself over what others expected, I hope you'll share a piece of that in the comments. Someone else may be needing the strength you've already found.